You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. You're tuned in to This Week in Palestine, a space where voices from the ground rise. Stories are told with truth at their core, and the lens of resistance is always focused on justice, dignity, and liberation. In each episode, we bring you reporting, dialogue, and reflection from Palestinian perspectives and through a global frame highlighting how the struggle in Palestine intersects with movements for justice everywhere. We don't shy away from complexity. We dissect the systems, challenge the narratives, and examine the impact of policy and media on real lives in Gaza, the West Bank, and beyond. Please note, the opinions expressed during the next hour belong to our hosts and guests and do not necessarily represent those of WZBC, Boston College, or its Board of Trustees. This is not a space for platitudes or polished soundbites. This is a platform for truth. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from around the globe. I'm your host, Bethany Marks, and I'm honored to welcome you back to another edition of This Week in Palestine. On this Sunday, July 13, 2025, our attention returns to Gaza and the West Bank, where human suffering continues unabated, even as the world watches. Media cycles may shift and public focus may flicker, but for those living under occupation and siege, the reality is constant, marked by displacement, steadfast resistance, and an unyielding fight for dignity. The question persists: how long must a people endure before global silence gives way to meaningful action? Stay with us. We're about to dive into a vital conversation on boycotting as a form of resistance and solidarity. After that, we'll share an insightful article by Chris Hedges, published on SheerPost, titled Profiting from Genocide, which powerfully supports and expands on the urgency of this call to action. You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. Boycotting Israel is a powerful, nonviolent strategy rooted in the global struggle for justice and human rights. At its core, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions BDS movement, launched in 2005 by over 170 Palestinian civil society organizations, calls on individuals, institutions, and governments to withdraw support from Israel's system of apartheid, military occupation, and settler colonialism until it complies with international law. The movement draws inspiration from the anti-apartheid campaign in South Africa and has grown into a global force, mobilizing millions across continents. Its strength lies in its simplicity and moral clarity. By refusing to buy, invest in, or support companies and institutions complicit in Israeli oppression, ordinary people can collectively apply economic and reputational pressure on a state that has long operated with impunity. The BDS movement targets specific sectors: economic, cultural, academic, and military, focusing on companies like HP, which provides surveillance technology to Israeli checkpoints, Elbit Systems, a major arms manufacturer, and brands like Puma, McDonald's, and Starbucks, which have been linked to support for Israeli policies. These boycotts are not random. They are strategic, winnable, and designed to build momentum. And they work. Major corporations such as Veolia, G4S, Orange, and even Ben & Jerry's have either scaled back or ended operations in Israel or the occupied territories due to sustained public pressure. In Canada, Scotiabank recently halved its investments in Elbit Systems following protests, and in Massachusetts, Elbit-owned KMC Systems shut down its Cambridge office after months of weekly demonstrations. These victories demonstrate that when people organize, they can disrupt the status quo and force powerful institutions to reconsider their complicity. The impact of BDS is not limited to corporations. Cities like Portland, Maine, Berkeley, California, and St. Louis, Missouri have passed resolutions to divest from companies involved in Israeli apartheid. Trade unions, churches, and universities have joined the call, with student-led campaigns pushing for divestment from university endowments and pension funds. In South Africa, the government downgraded its diplomatic ties with Israel, and Ireland passed legislation banning goods from illegal settlements. These actions show that BDS is not just a grassroots movement, it's influencing policy at the highest levels. Yet, the movement faces fierce opposition. Pro-Israel lobbying groups like IPAC have pushed for anti-BDS legislation across the United States, with over 30 states passing laws that penalize individuals or companies that support the boycott. Despite this, support for BDS continues to grow, especially among younger generations. In New York City, Zohran Mamdani's recent mayoral primary victory, despite his open support for BDS, signals a shift in public sentiment. His win, in a city with the largest Jewish population in the world, challenges the narrative that supporting Palestinian rights is politically toxic. It also underscores the importance of framing BDS not as an attack on a people or religion, but as a principled stand against state violence and systemic injustice. To expand the reach of the boycott, education and visibility are key. Social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and X, formerly Twitter, have become vital tools for spreading boycott lists, campaign updates, and success stories. Activists are creating localized boycott guides, organizing teach-ins, and hosting public events to raise awareness. On college campuses, Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP chapters are leading divestment campaigns, while cultural figures like Roger Waters and Lorde have refused to perform in Israel, amplifying the movement's message. Grassroots mobilization is also taking place through direct action, such as the Block the Boat campaign, which disrupts the unloading of Israeli cargo ships and protests outside businesses and government buildings. These efforts are not just symbolic, they are disruptive, visible, and effective. Websites like boycott-israel.org and bdsmovement.net provide accessible resources, including boycott lists, campaign strategies, and educational materials to help individuals and organizations take action. The movement also emphasizes intersectionality, aligning with racial, climate, gender, and economic justice struggles around the world. This broad coalition building strengthens the movement and highlights the shared nature of oppression and resistance. Ultimately, the power of boycotting Israel lies in its ability to transform passive outrage into active resistance. It empowers individuals to make ethical choices, challenges institutions to uphold human rights, and sends a clear message: complicity will not go unnoticed. While governments may fail to hold Israel accountable, people can and do make a difference. As the BDS movement continues to grow, it reminds us that justice is not inevitable. It is built, step by step, through collective action. The question is not whether boycotts can work, they already have. The question is whether we will have the courage to join them. The boycotts against Starbucks and McDonald's, driven by global outrage over their perceived complicity in Israel's actions during the war on Gaza, have had significant and measurable impacts, both economically and reputationally. These campaigns, fueled by grassroots activism and amplified through social media, have turned two of the world's most recognizable brands into symbols of corporate complicity in human rights violations. For McDonald's, the backlash began in earnest after its Israeli franchise publicly announced it had donated tens of thousands of free meals to Israeli Defense Forces, IDF units during the assault on Gaza. This act, seen by many as direct support for a military campaign widely condemned for its brutality, sparked immediate calls for a global boycott. The impact was swift. McDonald's reported a decline in global sales for the first time since 2020, with its CEO acknowledging that the war and associated misinformation had hurt the company's performance. In countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Turkey, where public support for Palestine is strong, foot traffic at McDonald's locations dropped significantly, and protests erupted outside stores. The BDS movement celebrated these developments, pointing to them as evidence that economic pressure can hold corporations accountable for their political alignments. Starbucks faced a different but equally damaging controversy. The company's U.S. labor union, Starbucks Workers United, posted a message of solidarity with Palestinians on social media. Starbucks corporate responded by suing the union, claiming the post misrepresented the company's views. This legal action ignited a firestorm, with critics accusing Starbucks of suppressing pro-Palestinian voices and aligning itself with anti-union and anti-solidarity stances. The fallout was severe. Starbucks stock dropped 7.4% in a single month, and the company lost an estimated $12 billion in market value due to a combination of boycotts, labor strikes, and poor holiday sales. In countries like Turkey, videos of activists confronting customers at Starbucks locations went viral. And in the U.S., the boycott gained traction among younger, socially conscious consumers who viewed the company's actions as hypocritical and repressive. Both companies have attempted damage control. McDonald's emphasized its commitment to inclusion and economic opportunity, while Starbucks CEO Laxman Narasimhan issued a vague statement expressing concern about misrepresentation on social media. But these responses have done little to stem the tide of public discontent. The boycotts have been sustained, organized, and intersectional, linking corporate complicity in Israeli apartheid to broader issues of labor rights, racial justice, and economic inequality. What makes these boycotts powerful is not just the financial impact, but the cultural shift they represent. They show that consumers are increasingly unwilling to separate a company's brand from its politics. They also demonstrate the power of decentralized grassroots movements to challenge multinational corporations and force them into the public spotlight. As John Schwartz, founder of the People's Union, USA, put it, "When we unite and hit corporations in their wallets, they listen. No McDonald's. No compromise." In short, the boycotts against Starbucks and McDonald's are not just about coffee and burgers. They are about power, accountability, and the global demand for justice in Palestine. And they are working. The boycott movement against Israel, particularly through the framework of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS has proven to be one of the most effective grassroots strategies for challenging Israeli apartheid and occupation. While boycotts target consumer behavior, they also serve as a catalyst for broader institutional change, especially in the realm of divestment. The connection between boycott and divestment is both strategic and symbiotic. Boycotts generate public awareness and moral pressure, which in turn compels institutions to divest from companies complicit in Israeli human rights violations. This dynamic has led to a growing wave of divestment victories around the world, from universities and churches to city councils and multinational corporations. The BDS movement, launched in 2005 by over 170 Palestinian civil society organizations, calls for nonviolent pressure on Israel until it complies with international law by ending the occupation, dismantling the apartheid wall, recognizing the rights of Palestinian citizens of Israel, and upholding the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Boycotts are the entry point accessible to individuals and communities, while divestment is the structural follow-through that hits at the financial and political foundations of complicity. One of the clearest examples of this relationship is the campaign against Elbit Systems, Israel's largest arms manufacturer. After years of protests and boycotts, Scotiabank, one of the largest banks in Canada, cut its holdings in Elbit by more than half, dropping from over 5% to just 1.44% of shares. This move followed sustained pressure from activists, including disruptions at high-profile events like the Giller Prize Gala. Similarly, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Elbit-owned KMC Systems was forced to shut down its office after months of weekly protests. These divestments were not isolated decisions. They were the result of coordinated boycott campaigns that made continued investment politically toxic and economically risky. The same pattern has played out globally. In the UK, the largest private pension fund, USS, divested over $100 million from Israeli assets. In France, insurance giant AXA pulled $20 million from Israeli banks. And as we said earlier, in the U.S. cities like Portland, Maine, Berkeley, California, and St. Louis, Missouri have passed resolutions to divest from companies doing business with Israel. These victories are not just financial, they are symbolic, signaling a shift in public consciousness and institutional accountability. The boycott campaigns that fuel these divestments are often highly targeted. For example, the global boycott of HP due to its role in providing biometric surveillance technology for Israeli checkpoints has led to universities and churches dropping HP contracts. The boycott of Puma, which sponsors the Israel Football Association, IFA, has gained traction among athletes and sports fans, leading to reputational damage and calls for the company to sever ties. Also, as we mentioned earlier, major brands like McDonald's and Starbucks have felt the pressure. McDonald's saw a 1.5% drop in global sales in late 2024, its largest decline in 4 years, after its Israeli franchise donated meals to the IDF during the war on Gaza. Starbucks lost over $12 billion in market value after suing its own union for expressing solidarity with Palestine, sparking a global boycott campaign. These consumer actions create the conditions for larger institutions, like pension funds, universities, and municipalities to justify divestment on both ethical and financial grounds. The BDS movement's impact has also extended to the political arena. In 2024, New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic primary, while openly supporting BDS, signaling that support for Palestinian rights is no longer a political liability, even in a city with the largest Jewish population in the world. Meanwhile, South Africa filed a case at the International Court of Justice, accusing Israel of genocide, and the court ruled that Israel's actions in Gaza plausibly constitute genocide. This legal and diplomatic momentum has been bolstered by BDS campaigns that have mainstreamed the analysis of Israel as an apartheid state and called for lawful sanctions, including arms embargoes and trade restrictions. In February 2024, UN human rights experts echoed BDS demands by calling on all states to halt arms exports to Israel and impose sanctions on trade, finance, and technology. These developments show that the movement is not only influencing consumer behavior and institutional investment, it is reshaping international discourse and policy. To sustain and expand this impact, spreading the word about boycott and divestment is essential. Activists use a range of tools, from social media campaigns and educational webinars to direct action and public demonstrations. Websites like bdesmovement.net and boycott-israel.org provide resources, campaign updates, and toolkits for organizing. On campuses, Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP chapters lead divestment campaigns, often linking them to broader struggles for racial and economic justice. Cultural figures, including musicians, writers, and athletes, have joined the call, refusing to perform in or collaborate with Israeli institutions. These efforts are amplified by global solidarity networks that connect the Palestinian cause to other liberation movements, from Black Lives Matter to indigenous rights campaigns. The result is a growing ecosystem of resistance that uses boycott as a spark and divestment as a lever to shift power. In conclusion, the boycott movement is not just a moral stance. It is a strategic engine that drives divestment and builds the foundation for systemic change. By targeting companies and institutions complicit in Israeli apartheid, boycotts create the public pressure necessary to force divestment decisions. These divestments, in turn, weaken the financial and political structures that sustain occupation and impunity. Together, boycott and divestment form a powerful one-two punch in the global struggle for Palestinian liberation. As the movement continues to grow, it reminds us that justice is not a passive hope, it is an active demand, built through collective action and unwavering solidarity. Another powerful tool to keep in mind when supporting the Palestinian cause is the use of boycott apps, digital platforms that help consumers identify and avoid products and companies complicit in Israeli apartheid, occupation, or support for the Israeli military. These apps empower individuals to make informed purchasing decisions, turning everyday consumer behavior into a form of resistance. As the global boycott movement grows, these tools are becoming essential for those who want to align their values with their spending. One of the most widely used resources is the Boycott Israel website, which offers a streamlined and regularly updated list of over 100 companies and 450 products to avoid. It provides detailed information about each company's involvement in Israel's military-industrial complex, illegal settlements, or political lobbying. This site is especially useful for those who want a comprehensive overview of the boycott landscape and prefer a web-based interface. For mobile users, several apps stand out. Boycott and No Thanks are two popular options that allow users to search for brands and products to see if they are on the boycott list. These apps are particularly helpful for scanning items while shopping, making it easy to avoid complicit brands in real time. Boycott, another app with a barcode scanner and magnifying glass icon, includes a wide range of categories from groceries and household goods to fashion and electronics. It also allows users to submit new entries, helping keep the database current and community-driven. Another standout is Disoccupied, which many users on platforms like Reddit have praised for its accuracy and ease of use. It focuses specifically on companies tied to Israeli apartheid and is updated frequently to reflect new developments in the global boycott campaign. Some users also cross-reference with apps like Shop, How You Vote, which, while not Palestine-specific, helps align purchases with broader ethical and political values. These apps are more than just convenience tools. They are part of a larger strategy to shift market dynamics, raise awareness, and apply economic pressure. By using them, individuals can participate in a global movement that has already led to major divestments and corporate withdrawals from Israel. For example, sustained boycotts contributed to companies like Veolia, G4S, and Ben & Jerry's reevaluating or ending their operations in Israel or the occupied territories. To spread the word about these apps, consider sharing them on social media or incorporating them into educational campaigns. Encourage friends, family, and local businesses to download and use them. The more people who participate, the greater the collective impact. In a world where corporations often operate above accountability, these tools give power back to the people one purchase at a time. As an individual, you have more power than you might think to influence and even help control divestment efforts, especially when your actions are part of a broader, organized movement. Divestment, at its core, is about withdrawing financial support from companies and institutions that are complicit in human rights violations in this case, those that profit from or enable Israel's occupation, apartheid policies, or military aggression. While large-scale divestment decisions are often made by institutions like universities, pension funds, or city governments, individuals play a critical role in initiating, pressuring, and sustaining these campaigns. Here's how you can take control and make a real impact. 1. Divest your own finances. Start by examining where your money is invested. If you have a retirement account, mutual funds, or stock portfolio, check whether any of your holdings include companies that are complicit in Israeli apartheid, such as Elbit Systems, Caterpillar, HP, or banks that finance settlement construction. Many investment platforms allow you to screen for ethical or socially responsible funds. You can choose to move your money into funds that exclude companies involved in military occupation or human rights abuses. This is a personal form of divestment that aligns your financial choices with your values. 2. Pressure institutions you're connected to. If you're a student, alumnus, faculty member, or donor, you can push your university to divest from companies complicit in Israeli apartheid. Student-led campaigns have already led to divestment resolutions at schools like the University of California System, Columbia, and SOAS University of London. Alumni can write letters, withhold donations, or organize petitions. Faculty can pass resolutions through academic senates. If you're part of a religious institution, union, or nonprofit, you can advocate for divestment policies there too. 3. Educate and mobilize others. Divestment campaigns succeed when they're backed by informed, passionate communities. Host teach-ins, share resources from the BDS movement, and use social media to spread awareness about which companies are complicit and why divestment matters. Create or join local chapters of organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, Students for Justice in Palestine, or Code Pink, which often lead divestment efforts. The more people you bring into the conversation, the more pressure you can collectively apply. 4. Engage in shareholder activism. If you or someone you know owns shares in a company, you can submit shareholder resolutions or vote on proposals that call for ethical investment practices. This is especially powerful in publicly traded companies like Amazon, Google, or Starbucks, where shareholder pressure can influence corporate behavior. Even small shareholders can make noise when they organize and collaborate with advocacy groups. 5. Lobby local governments. City councils and public pension boards often hold large investments in global corporations. You can attend public meetings, submit proposals, or organize campaigns urging your local government to divest from companies that support Israeli apartheid. Cities like Portland, Oregon, and Berkeley, California have passed such resolutions thanks to grassroots pressure. You can also support candidates who pledge to support divestment and hold elected officials accountable. 6. Use technology to track and act. Apps like Boycott, No Thanks, and Disoccupied help you identify companies to avoid and track your personal boycott impact. These tools also connect you to campaigns and petitions that support divestment. Websites like Investigate by the American Friends Service Committee allow you to search for companies and see how they're linked to Israeli military and surveillance operations. 7. Link divestment to broader movements. Divestment is most powerful when it's intersectional. Connect the Palestinian struggle to climate justice, racial justice, and indigenous rights. For example, many climate activists have pushed for fossil fuel divestment alongside BDS, recognizing that the same financial institutions often fund both environmental destruction and military occupation. This broadens your base of support and strengthens your campaign's moral clarity. 8. Celebrate and share victories. When divestment wins happen, whether it's a university dropping HP, a city cutting ties with Elbit Systems, or a bank reducing its holdings, share those stories widely. Victories inspire others to act and prove that divestment works. They also put pressure on other institutions to follow suit. In short, while you may not control a billion-dollar portfolio, your voice, your money, and your organizing power matter. Divestment is not just about moving money, it's about shifting public consciousness, exposing complicity, and building a global movement rooted in justice. Every petition signed, every dollar redirected, and every conversation sparked contributes to the growing demand for accountability and liberation. As history has shown from South Africa to Sudan to Palestine, when people organize, divestment becomes not just possible but inevitable. Benjamin Netanyahu has long attempted to frame the global boycott of Israeli products, particularly through the boycott, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) movement, as inherently anti-Semitic. However, this strategy has increasingly failed, especially in recent years, as more people, including many Jews, have drawn a clear distinction between criticism of Israeli state policies and hatred of Jewish people. Netanyahu's efforts to conflate the two have not only lost credibility, but have also backfired, exposing his political motives and weakening the rhetorical power of the anti-Semitism accusation. During the ongoing war on Gaza, Netanyahu has repeatedly labeled critics of Israel's military actions as anti-Semitic mobs, especially in response to mass protests on U.S. college campuses and in European cities. He even accused the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor of being one of the great anti-Semites in modern times after the court sought arrest warrants for him and his defense minister on charges, including the use of starvation as a weapon of war. These extreme accusations have drawn criticism from Jewish scholars, human rights advocates, and even Israeli historians, who argue that Netanyahu is weaponizing anti-Semitism to deflect legitimate scrutiny and suppress dissent. As Israeli historian Tom Segev put it, "Not every criticism against Israel is anti-Semitic the moment you say it is anti-Semitic hate. You take away all legitimacy from the criticism and try to crush the debate." This rhetorical overreach has led to a growing backlash. In the USC, for example, Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist and outspoken supporter of BDS, won the Democratic primary for New York City mayor in 2025 despite running in the city with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. His victory signaled a major shift that support for Palestinian rights and criticism of Israel are no longer politically disqualifying, even in traditionally pro-Israel strongholds. Many of Mamdani's Jewish supporters explicitly rejected the idea that BDS is anti-Semitic, instead viewing it as a legitimate form of nonviolent protest against apartheid and occupation. This reflects a broader generational and ideological shift, particularly among younger Jews and progressives, who are increasingly critical of Israeli policies and skeptical of attempts to silence debate by invoking anti-Semitism. Netanyahu's failure to shut down the boycott movement through accusations of anti-Semitism is also evident in the growing number of Jewish-led organizations that support BDS or defend the right to boycott. Groups like Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now, and Independent Jewish Voices have publicly challenged Netanyahu's narrative, arguing that true anti-Semitism must not be diluted by equating it with criticism of a state's actions. These groups have played a crucial role in reframing the conversation, emphasizing that opposing Israeli apartheid is not anti-Jewish. It is anti-oppression. In essence, Netanyahu's strategy has failed because it relies on a false equivalence that more and more people are unwilling to accept. The global boycott movement has grown not because it is anti-Semitic, but because it is rooted in universal principles of justice, equality, and human rights. By trying to discredit it with sweeping accusations, Netanyahu has only exposed his own unwillingness to engage with the substance of the criticism, and in doing so, he has helped galvanize a movement that refuses to be silenced. The bottom line is simple. If you care about justice, human dignity, and the future of Palestine, it's time to take action, real, tangible action. That means downloading boycott apps and actively avoiding Israeli products and companies that fund, support, or profit from the occupation and the war machine. Your purchases matter. Your silence is noticed. When you choose not to boycott, you're not staying neutral. You're endorsing a system that profits from genocide and facilitates the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Every dollar spent with complicit corporations is a vote for continued oppression. So, stand on the right side of history. Use your voice. Use your wallet. Make it clear complicity ends with us. Now, I'd like to share with you an article from Steerpost, a powerful platform for independent journalism. This piece is reported by Chris Hedges, a seasoned war correspondent and author known for exposing uncomfortable truths that mainstream outlets often sideline. The article is titled, "Profiting from Genocide, a chilling, clear-eyed examination of how corporations, political institutions, and complicit media systems have monetized the suffering of Palestinians." Let's dive into his powerful words and unpack what they reveal. War is a business. So is genocide. The latest report submitted by Francesca Albanese, Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, lists 48 corporations and institutions, including Palantir Technologies, Inc., Lockheed Martin, Alphabet, Inc., Amazon, International Business Machine Corporation, IBM, Caterpillar, Inc., Microsoft Corporation, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, along with banks and financial firms such as BlackRock, insurers, real estate firms, and charities, which in violation of international law are making billions from the occupation and the genocide of Palestinians. The report, which includes a database of over 1,000 corporate entities that collaborate with Israel, demands these firms and institutions sever ties with Israel or be held accountable for complicity in war crimes. It describes Israel's forever occupation as the ideal testing ground for arms manufacturers and big tech, providing significant supply and demand, little oversight, and zero accountability, while investors and private and public institutions profit freely. The post-Holocaust industrialists' trials and the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission laid the legal framework for recognizing the criminal responsibility of institutions and businesses that participate in international crimes. This new report makes clear that decisions made by the International Court of Justice place an obligation on entities to not engage and slash or to withdraw totally and unconditionally from any associated dealings, and to ensure that any engagement with Palestinians enables their self-determination. The genocide in Gaza has not stopped because it's lucrative. It's profitable for far too many, Albanese told me. It's a business. There are corporate entities, including from Palestine-friendly states, who have for decades made businesses and made profits out of the economy of the occupation. Israel has always exploited Palestinian land, resources, and Palestinian life. The profits have continued and even increased as the economy of the occupation transformed into an economy of genocide. In addition, she said, Palestinians have provided boundless training fields to test the technologies, test weapons, to test surveillance techniques that now are being used against people everywhere, from the global south to the global north. The report lambasts corporations for providing Israel with the weapons and machinery required to destroy homes, schools, hospitals, places of leisure and worship, livelihoods, and productive assets, such as olive groves and orchards. The Palestinian territory, the report notes, is a captive market because of Israeli-imposed restrictions on trade and investment, tree planting, fishing, and water for colonies. Corporations have profiteered from this captive market by exploiting Palestinian labor and resources, degrading and diverting natural resources, building and powering colonies, and selling and marketing derived goods and services in Israel, the occupied Palestinian territory, and globally. Israel gains from this exploitation, while it costs the Palestinian economy at least 35% of its GDP, the report notes. Banks, asset management firms, pension funds, and insurers have channeled finance into the illegal occupation, the report charges. In addition, Universities' centers of intellectual growth and power have sustained the political ideology underpinning the colonization of Palestinian land, developed weaponry, and overlooked or even endorsed systemic violence, while global research collaborations have obscured Palestinian erasure. Behind a veil of academic neutrality, surveillance and incarceration technologies have evolved into tools for indiscriminate targeting of the Palestinian population, the report notes. Heavy machinery previously used for house demolitions, infrastructure destruction, and resource seizure in the West Bank have been repurposed to obliterate the urban landscape of Gaza, preventing displaced populations from returning and reconstituting as a community. The military assault on the Palestinians has also provided testing grounds for cutting-edge military capabilities. Air defense platforms, drones, targeting tools powered by artificial intelligence, and even the F-35 program led by the United States of America. These technologies are then marketed as battle-proven. Since 2020, Israel has been the 8th largest arms exporter in the world. Its two biggest weapons companies are Elbit Systems Limited and the state-owned Israel Aerospace Industries Limited, IAI. It has a series of international partnerships with foreign weapons firms, including for the F-35 fighter jet, led by United States-based Lockheed Martin. Components and parts constructed globally contribute to the Israeli F-35 fleet, which Israel customizes and maintains in partnership with Lockheed Martin and domestic companies. The report reads, since October 2023, F-35s and F-16s jets have been integral to equipping Israel with the unprecedented aerial power to drop an estimated 85,000 tons of bombs, much of it unguided, to kill and injure more than 179,411 Palestinians and obliterate Gaza. Drones, hexacopters, and quadcopters have also been omnipresent killing machines in the skies of Gaza, the report reads. Drones largely developed and supplied by Elbit Systems and Israel Aerospace Industries have long flown alongside fighter jets, surveilling Palestinians and delivering target intelligence. In the past 2 decades, with support from these companies and collaborations with institutions such as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, drones used by Israel acquired automated weapons systems and the ability to fly in swarm formation. Japan's FANU see companies sell automation products and provide robotic machinery for weapons production lines, including for II Elbit Systems and Lockheed Martin. Shipping companies such as the Danish A.P. Møllermarsk/S transport components, parts, weapons, and raw materials, sustaining a steady flow of United States-supplied military equipment post October 2023. There was a 65% surge in Israeli military spending from 2023 to 2024, amounting to $46.5 billion, one of the highest per capita worldwide. This generated a sharp surge in their annual profits, while foreign arms companies, especially producers of munitions and ordnance, also profit. At the same time, tech companies have profited from the genocide by providing dual-use infrastructure to integrate mass data collection and surveillance, while profiting from the unique testing ground for military technology offered by the occupied Palestinian territory. They enhance carceral and surveillance services from closed-circuit television, CCTV networks, biometric surveillance, advanced tech checkpoint networks, smart walls, and drone surveillance, to cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and data analytics supporting on-the-ground military personnel. Israeli tech firms often grow out of military infrastructure and strategy, the report reads, as the NSO Group, founded by ex-Unit 8,200 members did. Its Pegasus spyware, designed for covert smartphone surveillance, has been used against Palestinian activists and licensed globally to target leaders, journalists, and human rights defenders. Exported under the Defense Export Control Law NSO Group surveillance technology enables a spyware diplomacy while reinforcing state impunity. IBM, whose technology facilitated Nazi Germany's generation and tabulation of punched cards for national census data, military logistics, ghetto statistics, train traffic management, and concentration camp capacity, is once again a partner in this current genocide. It has operated in Israel since 1972. It provides training for Israeli military and intelligence agencies, especially Unit 8200, which is responsible for clandestine operations, the collection of signal intelligence and code decryption, along with counterintelligence, cyber warfare, military intelligence, and surveillance. Since 2019, IBM Israel has operated and upgraded the central database of the Population and Immigration Authority, enabling collection, storage, and governmental use of biometric data on Palestinians, and supporting the discriminatory permit regime of Israel, the report notes. Microsoft, active in Israel since 1989, is embedded in the prison service police universities and schools, including in colonies. Microsoft has been integrating its systems and civilian tech across the Israeli military since 2003, while acquiring Israeli cybersecurity and surveillance startups. As Israeli apartheid, military and population control systems generate increasing volumes of data, its reliance on cloud storage and computing has grown, the report reads. In 2021, Israel awarded Alphabet Inc., Google, and Amazon.com a $1.2 billion contract, Project Nimbus, largely funded through Ministry of Defense expenditure to provide core tech infrastructure. Microsoft, Alphabet Inc., and Amazon grant Israel virtually government-wide access to their cloud and artificial intelligence technologies, enhancing data processing, decision-making, and surveillance and analysis capacities. The Israeli military, the report points out, has developed artificial intelligence systems such as Lavender, Gospel, and Where's Daddy to process data and generate lists of targets, reshaping modern warfare and illustrating the dual-use nature of artificial intelligence. There are reasonable grounds, the report reads, to believe that Palantir Technology, Inc., which has a long relationship with Israel, has provided automatic predictive policing technology, core defense infrastructure for rapid and scaled-up construction and deployment of military software, and its artificial intelligence platform, which allows real-time battlefield data integration for automated decision-making. Palantir's CEO in April 2025 responded to accusations that Palantir kills Palestinians in Gaza by saying, "Mostly terrorists, that's true." Civilian technologies have long served as dual-use tools of settler colonial occupation, the report reads. Israeli military operations rely heavily on equipment from leading global manufacturers to unground Palestinians from their land, demolishing homes, public buildings, farmland, roads, and other vital infrastructure. Since October 2023, this machinery has been integral to damaging and destroying 70% of structures and 81% of cropland in Gaza. Caterpillar Inc. has for decades provided the Israeli military with equipment used to demolish Palestinian homes, mosques, hospitals, as well as burying alive wounded Palestinians and killed activists such as Rachel Corrie. Israel has evolved Caterpillar's D9 bulldozer into automated, remote-commanded core weaponry of the Israeli military deployed in almost every military activity since 2000, clearing incursion lines, neutralizing the territory, and killing Palestinians, the report reads. This year, Caterpillar secured a further multi-millionaire dollar contract with Israel. The Korean HD Hyundai and its partially owned subsidiary, Dosen, alongside the Swedish Volvo Group and other major heavy machinery manufacturers, have long been linked to destruction of Palestinian property, each supplying equipment through exclusively licensed Israeli dealers, the report reads. As corporate actors have contributed to the destruction of Palestinian life in the occupied Palestinian territory, They have also helped construction of what replaces it, building colonies and their infrastructure, extracting and trading materials, energy and agricultural products, and bringing visitors to colonies as if to a regular holiday destination. More than 371 colonies and illegal outposts have been built, powered, and traded with by companies facilitating the replacement by Israel of the indigenous population in the occupied Palestinian territory, the report concludes. These building projects have used Caterpillar, HD Hyundai, and Volvo excavators and heavy equipment. Hansen Israel, a subsidiary of the German Heidelberg Materials AG, has contributed to the pillage of millions of tons of dolomite rock from the Nahal Rabba quarry on land seized from Palestinian villages in the West Bank. The quarried dolomite is used to construct Jewish colonies in the West Bank. Foreign firms have also contributed to developing roads and public transport infrastructure, critical to establishing and expanding the colonies, and connecting them to Israel, while excluding and segregating Palestinians. Global real estate companies sell properties in colonial settlements to Israeli and international buyers. These real estate firms include Keller Williams Realty LLC, which has had branches based in the colonies through its Israeli franchisee KW Israel. Last year, through another franchisee called Home in Israel, Keller Williams ran a real estate roadshow in Canada and the United States, jointly sponsored with several companies developing and marketing thousands of apartments in colonies. Rental platforms including Booking.com and Airbnb list properties and hotel rooms in illegal Jewish colonies in the West Bank. Chinese Bright Dairy and Food is a majority owner of Tunuva, Israel's largest food conglomerate, which utilizes land seized from Palestinians in the West Bank. In the energy sector, Chevron Corporation, in consortium with Israeli Numid Energy, a subsidiary of the OHCHR database-listed Delek Group, extracts natural gas from the Leviathan and Tamar fields. It paid the government of Israel $453 million in royalties and taxes. In 2023, Chevron's consortium supplies more than 70% of Israeli energy consumption. Chevron also profits from its part ownership of the East Mediterranean gas pipeline, which passes through Palestinian maritime territory, and from gas export sales to Egypt and Jordan. BP and Chevron also serve as the largest contributors to Israeli imports of crude oil, as major owners of the strategic Azeri-Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline and the Kazakh-Caspian pipeline consortium, respectively, and of their associated oil fields. Each conglomerate effectively supplied 8% of Israeli crude oil between October 2023 and July 2024, supplemented by crude oil shipments from Brazilian oil fields, in which Petrobras holds the largest stakes, and military jet fuel. Oil from these companies supplies 2 refineries in Israel. By supplying Israel with coal, gas, oil, and fuel, companies are contributing to civilian infrastructures that Israel uses to entrench permanent annexation and now weaponizes in the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza. The report reads, "The same infrastructure that these companies supply resources into has serviced the Israeli military and its energy-intensive, tech-driven obliteration of Gaza. International banks and financial firms have also sustained the genocide through the purchase of Israeli treasury bonds. As the main source of finance for the Israeli state budget, treasury bonds have played a critical role in funding the ongoing assault on Gaza," the report reads. From 2022 to 2024, the Israeli military budget grew from 4.2% to 8.3% of GDP, driving the public budget into a 6.8% deficit. Israel funded this ballooning budget by increasing its bond issuance, including $8 billion in March 2024 and $5 billion in February 2025, alongside issuances on its domestic new Shield market. The report notes that some of the world's largest banks, including BNP Paribas and Barclays, stepped in to boost market confidence by underwriting these international and domestic treasury bonds, allowing Israel to contain the interest rate premium despite a credit downgrade. Asset management firms including BlackRock, $68 million, Vanguard, $546 million, and Alliance's asset management subsidiary PIMC, $960 million, were among at least 400 investors from 36 countries who purchased them. Faith-based charities have also become key financial enablers of illegal projects, including in the occupied Palestinian territory, often receiving tax deductions abroad despite strict regulatory charitable frameworks, the report reads. The Jewish National Fund, KKLJNF, and its over 20 affiliates fund settler expansion and military-linked projects, the report reads. Since October 2023, platforms such as Israel Gives have enabled tax-deductible crowdfunding in 32 countries for Israeli military units and settlers. The United States-based Christian Friends of Israeli Communities, Dutch Christians for Israel and global affiliates, sent over $12.25 million in 2023 to various projects that support colonies, including some that train extremist settlers. The report criticizes universities that partner with Israeli universities and institutions. It notes that labs at MIT conduct weapons and surveillance research funded by the Israeli Ministry of Defense. These projects include drone swarm control, a distinct feature of the Israeli assault on Gaza since October 2023 pursuit algorithms, and underwater surveillance. Genocide requires a vast network and billions of dollars to sustain it. Israel could not carry out its mass slaughter of the Palestinians without this ecosystem. These entities, which profit from industrial violence against the Palestinians and mass displacement, are as guilty of genocide as the Israeli military units, decimating the people in Gaza. They too are war criminals. They too must be held accountable. You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. I want to take a moment to highlight an urgent call to action that demands our attention. Every Tuesday, from 12 to 1 p.m., community members gather for the standout to stop the killing outside the Zionist consulate at 20 Park Plaza in Boston. This is more than a protest. It's a stand for humanity, for accountability, and for the lives being lost in silence. Your presence matters. Show up. Speak out. Stand for justice. That brings us to the end of today's episode of This Week in Palestine. Stay informed. Stay engaged. And above all, keep challenging the silence with questions that demand answers. I'm your host, Bethany Marks, and it's been a privilege having you with us. If you have thoughts to share or want to support our work, reach out anytime at twippodcasts@gmail.com. We truly welcome your voice in this growing community. To our listeners, thank you for showing up, and to the powerhouse team behind this show. Your efforts make it all possible. With deep appreciation to Bob Funk, Stanley Robinson, Stephen Lowe, Sophia Rose Woolman, Lesh, Tahani Abu Mosa, Dr. Rana Awad, Professor Ann Lucas, Juliet Salama Olivier, Renaid Al-Ghul, and Mohammed Al-Ghul, your commitment and heart are woven into every word we broadcast. This Week in Palestine is a production of Truth and Justice Radio, broadcasting proudly from WZBC Student Radio at Boston College. As always, thank you for standing with us as we continue walking the path toward Palestinian liberation. We'll be back next week. Stay strong. In the hallway dim, where the sirens cry, under falling dust and a darkened sky, a doctor moves with shaking hands, trying to hear what no one understands.
little girl crying, holding her knee. Another boy screaming, why can't I see? A woman sobs, please don't let him go. My baby's barely breathing, he's all I know. Doctor, please help me. Doctor, where's my son? Doctor, they just bombed another ambulance run. With broken hearts and empty shelves, you carry the world by your